So then you moved your research to Spring Grove in Baltimore, at the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center, right? And you were working with a range of substances, including MDA and DPT. Perhaps you could tell us a bit about the different substances you were working with?
Yes, originally LSD, and then we wanted to move towards a shorter acting substance, and we chose dipropyltryptamine, DPT, and we did a number of studies with that, with treatment of alcoholics and narcotic addicts and cancer patients. We've done a lot of work with people approaching death and helping them just live more fully this final chapter of life. And that's, if I had to choose one application of psychedelic therapy that excites me most, I think it would be that work with people at the end of life. Because it's just dramatic. People come alive and they live, and they, instead of fearing death if they have a mystical experience, they kind of approach it with curiosity. You know, there's no rush. You know, they'll live as long as they can and get all the goodness out of every day they can. But they know that most people eventually have died, and there's a pretty good chance that they're going to have that experience too. But they approach it more with openness, curiosity, the sense that a deep intuitive feeling that life somehow ultimately makes sense in a pattern that's just too big for us to comprehend. You know?
Yeah. I agree. One of the reasons that I'm so passionate about trying to argue for the reality of these experiences, because, as you say, people have these experiences. They realize they're not fundamentally the kind of psychological ego, but they're more, identical to the unfolding reality that will exist after they die. And I feel like I've definitely read people who will kind of say, in reporting your research, would say like the cancer patients have these experiences, and whether or not they're true, they seem to help with their fear of death. And there's something about the insinuation that these people are just kind of fooling themselves with some nice story. I find kind of a sense of urgency to defend the reality of the insights they've had, because I think they're really, they're really important and profound. But so then as you said, you were working with alcoholics, end-of-life distress, cancer patients, the personality disorder research. And then this continued after Prohibition, right? You were the only lab or the only center that was continuing into the 70s with psychedelic research. Is that right?
Right. That I was able to keep working until 1977. And the research, most centers stopped in 1970, 71. But I'm not sure why the FDA allowed us to continue, but I'm very thankful they did. But our staff kept getting smaller, and our funding vanished, and eventually the research center was transferred to a whole new administration, and the whole clinical sciences division was eliminated, and with that, the psychedelic research. But it's very interesting just to note that what definitively stopped psychedelic research in the United States was not the government, the federal government, even though they weren't encouraging it, but it was really state administrators who just felt it was getting too complicated, too controversial. And the Maryland Psychiatric Research Center was funded by the state of Maryland. It was this beautiful 4-story brand new facility for psychedelic research. And when it got more and more controversial, the press kind of changed to, why are we using state taxpayers' money to give people LSD? you know. And it was a very irrational, chaotic time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
eventually it
interesting.
became dormant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely the way that, it's not, I guess it's from the outside, people might assume the federal government just made it illegal for anyone to do research, but it seems to be more the case that there just become so many barriers. You have to go through ethics approval, and that becomes harder. You have to go through getting funding, and it just kind of makes it impossible practically, I guess, right, to actually get anything done, rather than it just being completely outlawed.